Lena Ramos had never been to Manila before. The farthest she'd ever traveled was to the next province for her cousin's wedding, and that was over 5 years ago. Her life was tightly bound to the narrow streets of General Santos City, where mango trees shaded jeepney stops, and the smell of fried plantains drifted like memory through the late afternoons. It was here, in a concrete shack with a rusted tin roof and walls lined with photographs of saints, that Lena grew up watching grainy replays of boxing matches beside her father. And in every match, whether it was midnight or mid-morning, there was one name that lit up their modest living room like it was the MGM Grand itself: Manny Pacquiao. To say Manny was her hero would be an understatement. He was her beacon. He was proof that poverty wasn't a prison sentence, that a kid selling bread on the streets could lace up gloves and end up a national treasure. He was also, not by coincidence, born in the same city as her. Her father would always say, "He walked the same roads you walk. You breathe the same air. Don't tell me it's impossible." But impossibility, Lena had learned, had nothing to do with the streets you walked and everything to do with the weight life placed on your back. Her father passed away when she was 21, diabetes winning a fight he never could afford to prepare for. Her mother began working double shifts at the school, and Lena took to selling turon at the public market, waking up at 4 every morning to fry, wrap, and hope. Hope. That was what made her do it. When she saw the poster online, Pacquiao doing a public training session in Manila before his charity match, something ignited in her. Not a fan's excitement, but a daughter's resolve. She didn't want an autograph, she didn't want a selfie. She wanted one moment, one chance to say thank you face to face, that was all. And to get it, she did the unthinkable. She sold her old TV, her most prized possession, and bought a one-way bus ticket to Manila. 18 hours sitting upright with a plastic bag of clothes and a handmade cardboard sign folded in her lap. The sign was simple, just a few words scrawled in red marker on old Balikbayan box cardboard. "Manny, 1 minute of your time is worth a lifetime to me, please." No glitter, no photos, no fanfare, just truth. She didn't sleep the night before. At 5 a.m., she was already at the gates of the open-air gymnasium, waiting, clutching her sign like it was the last thing tethering her to her dream. The morning sun in Manila was harsher than back home. By 8 a.m., the heat was cutting through her worn-out blouse, her palms already sweating against the cardboard. She didn't bring an umbrella. She didn't bring food. She didn't bring water. She hadn't thought that far ahead. She just knew she had to be seen. So she stood by the railing near the entrance, where rumors said Manny might walk through. Every so often, people glanced at her. Some smirked. A few took photos. One mother offered her a banana for energy. Lena shook her head and smiled. She couldn't risk moving. Couldn't risk missing the moment. Hours passed. The crowd swelled, then ebbed. People came and went. A wave of children arrived around noon and flooded the place with cheers and noise, only to be ushered away by security. By mid-afternoon, Lena's arms ached from holding the sign aloft. She shifted her weight from foot to foot. Her lips cracked. Her stomach growled. But she stayed. A local reporter approached her around 3 p.m., curious about the story behind the sign. They filmed a short interview. Lena spoke softly, barely above a whisper, afraid that even her voice might chase the moment away. "He inspired my father," she said. "I just want to thank him for everything." The camera rolled on her weathered face, her eyes sunlit and tired, her hands trembling but steady with the cardboard. By 5 p.m., shadows were stretching long across the pavement. A few remaining fans still lingered, hoping for a glance, a handshake, a miracle. Lena stayed. Her legs were numb, her lips were dry. Her sign was curling at the edges. Security guards began cleaning the area, politely encouraging stragglers to leave. A kind-faced man in a blue polo approached her and said gently, "Ma'am." He already left. For a moment, she didn't hear him, or maybe she didn't want to. She simply nodded, lowered the sign, and stood there as if unmoored from time. The light around her dimmed. She sat down on the sidewalk, her back against the iron railing. The cardboard rested on her lap now, stained with sweat, faded by sun. She didn't cry, not yet. The tears were waiting for later, when she'd be alone, far from the lights and noise, sitting in a dark corner of the terminal. When she'd take the bus back home, 18 hours of silence pressing against her chest like regret. That night at the terminal, she did what she always did. She waited. No hotel, no bed, no dinner. Just her backpack, her rolled-up sign, and a tiny phone running on 15% battery. She scrolled through the feed, not expecting anything, just to pass the time. That's when she saw it. The video. Her video. The interview. Posted by a local station. Her face on screen. Her words replayed. The caption read, "She waited 12 hours to meet her hero. He never came. But maybe the story isn't over yet." She stared at the screen. A few comments trickled in, then dozens, then hundreds. People asking who she was, where she was, tagging Manny Pacquiao, calling her brave, saying they cried, that they saw themselves in her. A famous influencer reposted it, adding, "This woman deserves her minute. Let's find her." For the first time in days, Lena smiled, not because of what had happened, but because of what might. Something stirred in her, something she hadn't felt since her father first told her that dreams belong to the poor too. She curled into herself on the bench, using her backpack as a pillow, the sign clutched against her chest like a promise. She didn't know it yet, but her 12 hours in the sun were only the beginning. Something was already moving behind the curtain, and somewhere not far away, a man who had spent his life in the ring was about to step out of it, just long enough to meet the woman who refused to stop believing. The morning after her story went online, Lena woke to the sound of her phone vibrating non-stop on the bench beside her. She hadn't charged it all night, and the battery blinked red, but it buzzed like it was trying to pull her out of sleep. When she opened her eyes, she saw more notifications than she'd ever received in her life. Messages, comments, tags. Her face, drawn, sunburned, tired, was everywhere. Her video had gone viral. She blinked at the screen in disbelief. Thousands of people had shared her story. Strangers from other provinces, even from other countries, wrote things like, "She reminds me of my mother," or "This is what real fandom looks like." One tweet read, "The world doesn't deserve people like her." Another said, "If this doesn't reach Manny, what are we even doing?" Lena felt her hands shake. She had no idea the short clip of her interview had traveled so far or touched so many. Somewhere at that very moment, inside a modest home with large windows and quiet walls, Manny Pacquiao sat on a couch, scrolling through his own feed. His team had already shown him the clip. He watched it again, silently, the sound low, the image clear. He saw the sign. He saw her standing still through the sun, the exhaustion on her face, the pride in her voice. His eyes narrowed when she said, "I just want to thank him for everything." For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then softly to the assistant at his side, he said, "She reminded me of my mother." He knew that kind of waiting. He'd seen it in the eyes of fans before, but something about her was different. There was no greed, no entitlement, just something pure, determined, kind. He tapped the table lightly. "Find her," he said. "Bring her to me." Back at the Manila bus terminal, Lena still wasn't quite sure what to make of all the attention. She didn't know how to respond to messages from people asking where she was or offering help. She wasn't used to being seen. A woman with tired clothes and old shoes didn't expect the world to look her way. But then, around noon, her phone rang from an unknown number. "Hello?" she answered, her voice unsure. "Miss Ramos?" the voice said. It was calm, official, friendly. "I'm with Senator Pacquiao's team. He saw your video. He would like to meet you, personally." There was a pause on her end. She thought it was a prank. Her mouth went dry. "Is this a joke?" "No, ma'am. We'll take care of your transportation. You'll meet him tomorrow morning. Please be ready. And bring your sign." It wasn't until the line went dead that Lena realized her hands were covering her mouth. Tears were already slipping down her cheeks, not from shock but from release, from the unbearable weight that something she'd believed in, deeply and silently, was actually unfolding into reality. It was more than she'd asked for, more than she thought possible. That night she was given a room in a nearby inn, courtesy of Pacquiao's team. She slept in a real bed, under clean sheets, with air conditioning humming softly in the background. But she didn't really sleep. Her heart raced with nerves, with hope, with fear that it might all vanish before the morning came. At dawn, she put on the cleanest clothes she had. Still simple, still plain. But she brushed her hair back carefully, tied it with a cloth ribbon her mother had given her, and folded the sign one more time, just enough to fit into her arms. She was driven in a quiet van, no media, no attention, through the traffic-choked streets of Manila to a private gymnasium outside the city. As they pulled in, her throat tightened. She didn't know what to expect. Cameras, security, an audience. Instead, when the doors opened, it was nearly silent inside. A cool breeze blew through the open windows, and the ring in the center of the gym was empty. Just a few members of Manny's inner circle stood around quietly, nodding at her. One of them guided her forward and said only, "He'll be here in a moment." Lena stepped into the middle of the gym. Her hands clutched the folded cardboard. The echo of her footsteps sounded too loud in her own ears. Then from a side door he entered. He didn't walk in like a celebrity. No entourage, no spotlight, just Manny Pacquiao, modest, calm, looking directly at her. She couldn't breathe. She stood frozen. Every word she had rehearsed melted inside her. Her fingers dug into the sign. Her knees buckled slightly, as if the weight of her journey had suddenly arrived all at once. Before she could fall, he was in front of her. "No need to kneel," he said softly. But she was already kneeling, tears falling freely now. "Thank you," she whispered. "I just wanted to say thank you." Manny knelt too, lifted her gently by the elbow, looked her in the eyes. "You waited 12 hours for me," he said. "Now I'll give you 12 rounds of my attention." She laughed through the tears. He smiled. They sat down on 2 benches by the edge of the ring. The sign lay across both their laps. He took it in his hands, reading it again. "This is beautiful," he said. "No one's ever said it like that." For the next hour they talked, not as idol and fan, but as 2 people who came from the same soil. Lena told him about her father, how they watched his fights, how they prayed before every round, how her father would say, "This man is our proof that life can be bigger than pain." Manny listened without interruption. He told her about his own struggles, his youth on the streets, his mother's sacrifices, the feeling of being invisible until one day, suddenly, the world saw him. They talked like that, back and forth, sharing memory and silence. Then he invited her to a charity event happening that weekend. Not in the crowd, in the front row, with his family. "You belong there," he said. And she did. She attended, not as a fan but as a guest, wearing a dress she borrowed from the wife of the innkeeper, sitting beside people who once seemed untouchable. She didn't take many pictures. She didn't post anything. Manny asked for no publicity. This was just between us, he reminded her, and she respected that deeply. When it was time to return home, she was given a proper ride, a new phone, and a small envelope. Inside was a note in Manny's handwriting. "The fight outside the ring is the hardest, but you already won." Back in General Santos, Lena stepped off the bus and stood for a long moment, staring at the sky. The sign, now signed and carefully preserved, sat in her lap. She didn't rush home. She walked slowly, letting the dust settle around her sandals, the air warm with mango blossoms. When she finally arrived, her mother embraced her like she'd been gone for years. Lena told her everything, not proudly but quietly, with the kind of joy that doesn't need exaggeration. And later that night, as she pinned the sign to the wall of their small home, she realized something. She had waited 12 hours not to meet a man, but to find her own strength. The world had watched her hold a sign, but only she knew what it had taken to hold on to belief that long. And now, something was shifting. Not just for her, but maybe for others too. The days after her return were strangely quiet, the kind of quiet that came not from silence but from something deeper, an afterglow. Lena Ramos didn't walk through the streets of General Santos the same way she used to. Her pace was slower, her eyes softer, as if the very air around her had changed texture. People recognized her now, not in the loud celebrity way, but in subtle nods, quiet smiles, soft greetings from people at the market who had seen the story online or heard about it from someone who did. "You're the girl with the sign, right?" they'd ask, and Lena would smile modestly and say, "Yes, that was me." The sign, now weathered and framed, hung on the wall beside a fading family photo of her father. It was the first thing people saw when they walked into their tiny home. Neighbors came by just to look at it. Her mother dusted it every morning as if it were a holy object. And Lena, despite all the attention, returned to the Turon stall the following week. She didn't want to become someone else. She only wanted to carry forward what that moment had awakened in her. But something had shifted. She couldn't explain it, not even to herself. It wasn't just that she had met her hero. It was that she had crossed some invisible threshold, proved something, maybe not to the world, but to herself. That she could dare, that she could persist. That hope, even if quiet and trembling, had power. One afternoon, about a month after the meeting, she received a letter. A handwritten envelope postmarked from Manila, no return address, just her name in careful script. Inside was a note from one of Manny's foundation staff. It explained that her story had sparked something in the senator. He wanted to fund a small project in her name, something local, sustainable, and rooted in her own voice. "Think of a way to give hope," the letter said. "He believes you're the right person for it." Lena didn't answer right away. The letter sat under her pillow for 3 days. She reread it every night before sleeping, as if making sure it was still real. Eventually, she knew what she wanted to do. Not something big, not flashy, something that mirrored her sign. Simple, heartfelt, and true. She proposed a small community center. Not a formal building, just an open space, shaded, safe, a place where children could read, draw, learn. A place for young girls who needed a voice, who might someday need to make a sign of their own. She called it Minuto ng Tapang, a minute of courage, inspired not by the 12 hours she had waited, but by the 1 minute of courage it took to believe it might be worth it. The foundation approved it. Funds were modest but sufficient. Volunteers from her barangay joined in. A retired teacher offered to help. A carpenter donated labor. Bit by bit, it came to life. The first day it opened, 20 children showed up. By the third week, there were 50. They didn't know much about Manny Pacquiao or what had happened in Manila. They just knew there was a new place with books and crayons and a woman who believed in them. Lena didn't speak much about what she had done. She rarely mentioned the meeting unless asked directly. She didn't use the word fate or destiny. She said simply, "I waited, that's all." But the truth was far more than that, because in that long wait, in that quiet suffering, she had found the strength to cross the invisible line between ordinary and unforgettable. Months passed, seasons shifted. Lena became something of a quiet legend, not the kind they write songs about, but the kind who lingers in the hearts of those who saw her do something beautiful without asking for anything back. Then, on the anniversary of that 12-hour day, something unexpected happened. She received another call. This time it wasn't a member of Manny's team. It was a young woman, a filmmaker from Cebu, who had seen the story and wanted to create a short documentary. Not about Manny, she clarified, about you, about what it means to believe in something that doesn't guarantee anything in return. At first, Lena declined. She wasn't comfortable in front of cameras, but after thinking it over, she agreed on one condition, that it focus on the children, the center, and the idea of courage, not her. Filming began the following week. The crew was small, just 3 people, but they followed Lena through her routines, watching her teach, laugh, sweep the floor, hand out snacks, read to children sitting cross-legged on bamboo mats. One afternoon, they filmed her standing at the edge of the road where she had waited with her sign, holding a new piece of cardboard. This time it said, "You don't have to be famous to change a life, you only need a minute of courage." That clip, when posted, caught fire again, this time in a different way. It wasn't about celebrity anymore. It wasn't about Manny. It was about something universal. About standing for something when you have no guarantee that anyone will notice. About showing up despite the odds. About giving the world a chance to surprise you. Lena didn't return to the spotlight after that. She preferred it that way. The center continued to grow. New donations came in, inspired by the story. A local university offered to send education students as interns. A mural of the original sign was painted on the wall near the entrance, a tribute not just to her but to the idea that small acts of faith could move the world in ways louder gestures never could. She still sold Turon, still woke up at 4, still wore the same ribbon in her hair. But sometimes early in the morning, as she walked through the quiet streets before the city woke up, she'd whisper a quiet thank you into the breeze, not to fate, not even to Manny, but to the version of herself that had once stood for 12 hours under a burning sun, holding a piece of cardboard as if it were her soul. Because in the end, that's what made it all possible. Not the meeting, not the moment, but the choice to wait, the choice to believe. And in that choice, a woman named Lena Ramos had done something extraordinary. She had turned waiting into action, faith into legacy, and a single minute of courage into a lifetime of meaning.